Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Bite Size Rallying. And carrying on the theme from the previous episode, very much Subaru Impreza, Colin McRae, this time I'm going to talk about this car, the stunning two-door Subaru Impreza World Rally car. So picture the scene, midway through the 1996 season, and Subaru's commitment to world rallying is absolute, and they post the intentions to take advantage of the new World Rally Car regulations that will come into force from 97, and this car, the Impreza WRC, will spearhead the Subaru campaign in 1997. But it's still the 1996 season, and the Impreza 555 Group A has been a very, very successful rally car. They've achieved a World Manufacturers title in 1995 and 1996, and driving this car, Colin McRae and Derek Ringer took the 1995 World Rally Championship with victory on the WRC Rally, and this was L555 BAT. So the existing car has got some pedigree, and Subaru decided to invest in rallying and continue the upward trajectory that they've experienced with the Impreza. So they enlist esteemed designer Peter Stevens of McLaren F1 road car fame to design the Impreza based on the two-door body shell. So he flared up the arches, bonnet scoops, air intakes, and this was the end result that rocked up in Monaco at the start of the 1997 Monte Carlo Rally. And also at that time, Colin McRae had a new co-driver in Nicky Grist. Dave Richards, the team principal at Subaru, known as DR, had taken the decision to engineer a situation where Colin's existing co-driver, Derek Ringer, would be replaced by Nicky Grist for 97. DR felt that Colin needed somebody who could manage him as a driver. He felt he'd gone off the rails in 96, and understandably, certainly the first half of the season with the accidents. However, interested onlookers with an opinion but no influence, such as myself, well, we're quite sorry to see the McRae-Ringer partnership splitting up, because they've been together since the Vauxhall Nova days 1987. We'd seen them pilot that 1300cc car to top 10 results in international rallies right the way through because of Sierra's super legacies, and obviously culminating that world title. And Colin and Derek proved throughout the second half of 1996 that they could still get results. They took 3 victories, as we said last time, so it seemed a bit of a premature split to some of us, but nonetheless Grist was in the car for 97, and he had he'd been with Juha Kankkunen, and he was a very, very well respected co-driver and a great man manager. So the team rocked up in Monte Carlo, and Colin and Nicky didn't shine. They actually had an accident on that rally, so the traits from 96 appeared to be continuing. However, the Impreza WRC still won first time out thanks to Italian Piero Leati, who drove a stunning event, and the car looked head and shoulders above everything else. Next time out in Sweden, and it was a 4-way battle for the lead between Colin McRae driving this car, P12 WRC, Kenneth Ericsson in another Impreza World Rally car, Carlos Sainz in the Ford Escort, and Tom Mackin in the Mitsubishi. And ultimately, Ericsson won that rally. McRae had tyre problems, but Ericsson took the victory. 2 victories on the trot for the Impreza WRC. And then we got to the Safari Rally, East African Safari Rally in Kenya for round 3. McRae hadn't yet scored a victory, his 2 teammates had. And McRae was leading the event, and then in East Africa on the Safari Rally, the top teams employ helicopter spotters, which predominant purpose they serve is to look out for wild animals that might be crossing the track, wildebeest, gazelles, etc. And the Subaru helicopter didn't actually spot any wild animals on one stage as McRae was leading, but they also failed to spot a makeshift wall that some errant spectators had forced in front of the rally car. The Subaru hit the wall and needed the suspension rebuilding, but the pro driver mechanics did a fantastic job and rebuilt the car, and McRae maintained his lead. And despite some other electrical problems later on in the event, and a hard-charging fellow Brit, Richard Burns in the Mitsubishi, closing on him, McRae and Grist took the victory. First time they'd won together, and there was a hat-trick of victories for the Impreza WRC. Could anybody touch this car? Next time in Portugal, McRae retired with problems, a sign of things to come. However, throughout 1997, they were on the pace, and they actually achieved, in total, going into the WRC Rally. At that point, they had 4 World Championship victories, and the tilt of the title was still on. But they'd also had it's 5 or 6 retirements throughout that year as well. And this Impreza, as good looking a car as it was and as purposeful as it was, it had its fair share of mechanical maladies. And Ericsson as well had it, as well as again Victory's had experienced those maladies as well. So it wasn't quite as reliable as the older 555 model. So we're going to the RAC Rally, November 1987 on Rally GB, driving this car, P12 WRC. McRae had a chance at the title, but Tommy Mäkinen in the Group A Mitsubishi was on 62 points. Colin was on 52 with 10 points for a win. Basically, if Mäkinen scored a single point, which he got for finishing 6th, the title was his. So the WRC steamrolled into Chester for the start of that event. Subaru had assembled quite a team. McRae, teammate Ericsson, who always goes well in Britain, and Liati is the third car and backup. So combined with Fords, Toyotas, and Richard Burns Mitsubishi, there maybe was a chance that we could somehow depose Mäkinen at that 6th place, or he may retire. And it looks as if it might be on. When Colin turned up on that Sunday morning, Mäkinen looked not too well. He had the flu, and as Jeremy Hart, the BBC commentator, was interviewing him, it was apparent that he wasn't very well at all. And the last place he wanted to be was in Chester for 5 days in the rain and the fog and the mist, possibly the snow. He wanted to be at home in bed, but he had a job to do. So early on, day one, obviously McRae steamrolled in the lead as people expected him to do. But a major blow for the Subaru team when Kenneth Ericsson engine blew up on the very, very first stage. More Subaru unreliability. Now, Ericsson was expecting McRae's wingman, and he would have surely fulfilled a good role. So that posed a problem and posed a challenge. And throughout the event, McRae was in the lead, challenged by Richard Burns, but ultimately McRae led the rally throughout. Mäkinen was in 6th place. Liati, his teammate, was in 7th. If only Liati would get his WRC into 6th place and depose Mäkinen, who was certainly off form, there was a chance at the title. But it wasn't to be. Colin won the rally. I spectated on the rally myself with some friends, and it was a sight to behold. Every other car looked quite boring in comparison, because this car was sideways everywhere and physically quicker than everything else. But winning the rally wasn't enough. 5 victories in the season was not enough due to those 6 retirements, 5 due to mechanical failure, 1 due to an accident in the Monte. And as a result, by finishing 6th, and Liati not deposing Mäkinen became World Rally Champion again. And on the way home from that event, myself and a couple of friends were driving back in a small Mazda 3-2 hatchback, which we'd been living in for 4 days throughout the rally. And also, as well as 3 6-foot lads, there was a cardboard cutout of the top half of Colin McRae in the in the offside rear window as well, waving to fellow motorists. As we're driving up the M5 through Chester, one of my passenger spots that an Isuzu Trooper overtakes us. I'm driving very slow at that time because I'm knackered. I've been sleeping in a car for 4 nights. So I changed down a couple of gears and overtook the Isuzu. A new registered Isuzu, and I figured with the Subaru Isuzu relationship, my friend said that's Colin. So it could well be. Travelling up north into the rally, it's quite feasible. And sure enough, we pulled back into the inside lane, a flick of the hazards to draw attention to these nutters. And Colin saw us and the cardboard cut out himself. He gives a thumbs up, gives a wave. He just won the rally, he'd lost the title. But obviously he knew the crowd were behind him when we demonstrated that, which was quite pleasing. And Subaru wrapped up the manufacturer's title for the 3rd consecutive year with this new car. So into 98, I'm sure everybody thought this year was going to be McRae's year. If the car had been more reliable, 97 would have been a walk in the park. So 98, again, the victories came, but equally, the mechanical failures came as well. And at the end of the season, after some cracking victories throughout 1998, at the end of the year, we come to Rally Australia, the penultimate event before Rally GB, and the title was on again. McRae was playing the tactics game with road position on the very, very final day, steamrolled into the lead of the rally, deposing Mäkinen, Richard Burns, Carlos Sainz. They'd all been in the hunt for victory in that rally, but Colin played the card perfectly with Nicky Grace and they steamrolled into the lead towards the end of the rally. That's exactly what the championship campaign needed. But unfortunately, a couple of stages from the end, the Subaru's turbo blew, another mechanical failure, and in doing so, that was the championship over. RAC Rally, and by this point, these mechanical failures and also a battle between Colin and Chief Engineer David Lapworth, who insisted that the Impreza WRC with the wide track, front track, the wider suspension was the ultimate rally car setup. Now, Colin liked his cars to be nervous and that he could drive them with opposite lock and balance the cars with the corners of the throttle. So he wanted the narrow track that he'd had in the old 555 car. Lapworth disagreed, but ultimately he got his way. But by that point, Colin had enough, and in 1998, he signed a multi-million-pound deal. He was leaving the blue team to go to the blue oval for 99. So the 98 RAC, or Rally GB, Colin's last rally. Everybody expected him to win. He had a point to prove. He was a master of this event. It was a fantastic battle with fellow Englishman, fellow Brit, Richard Burns, the Englishman, in the Mitsubishi, who was going to take Colin's seat at Subaru in 99 and was really coming of age. And it was an epic battle, but McRae was generally quicker. And on, I think it was the second day, coming into Boothwell Service Park, the Subaru's got a pile of blue smoke behind it. It had failed again. So when Top Gear interviewed him, asked him obviously if he could reflect on 8 years at Subaru, 8 years that had made him 8 successful years, made him world champion, and many, I think it was 16 world championship rally victories at that point. And Colin said, when asked how to sum up his career at Subaru, he said, I couldn't think of anything positive at the time. He was obviously dejected that car failure had almost, well, definitely cost him 2 World Rally Championship drivers' titles. So McRae departed Subaru and went to Ford for 99. But the Impreza WRC story, the two-door Impreza WRC story wasn't over. The cars campaigned for another 2 seasons in 99 and 2000. And the chief people behind the wheel then were Juha Kankkunen and Richard Burns. Kankkunen, 4 times world champion, very much towards the twilight of his career. But actually took 2 victories in 99. This stunning car rejuvenated him, and he did fantastically well. Richard Burns finished runner-up in the 99 World Championship. I think he took 3 victories in 99, 4 victories in year 2000, and came runner-up in the World Championship both times. So the Impreza WRC, in total, it won something like 20 World Championship rallies driven by Ericsson, Liati, McRae, Burns and Kankkunen. But it had been reliable. It might well have won 35-40, and that was the downfall. The fact is, the old car was much more reliable than the one that replaced it, but it didn't look half as good. And I think I share the views of many when I feel that this car is probably the candidate for the best looking rally car of all time, with the blue paintwork, the metallic blue paintwork, and obviously that 2-door body shell. It did look absolutely superb. So there we have it, Subaru Impreza WRC. Thank you for watching the video. I'll see you next time, another episode of Bite Size Rallying. Thank you.